It's the end of the second ODI between England and Ireland, and we're at Trent Bridge for Ask George. Bit more cricket today, George. That was a nice change than we had on Wednesday, really.
It was really fun, actually.
Yeah, it was.
It's quite cold.
Yeah.
But, we are playing in autumn, the autumn internationals, as we've said. And yeah, there was a lot of cricket and a lot of sort of fun cricket.
Yes, definitely. First question is from Stevel Knievel, who says, why is it taking the ECB this long to pick Warwickshire's Sam Hain?
I think you've got to say that the England middle order in white ball cricket has been phenomenally strong. So why is it taking so long? He's competing with Joe Root, isn't he? And Joss Butler and Ben Stokes, all these people. England have been in the most successful playing era in history, really, in their history in white ball cricket. And so he's trying to get into an incredibly good lineup. And I think that's okay. I think it was right to pick him now. And I think that he's also improved. Look, I've written about him today, and he would admit that being left out of the COVID squad, basically the second 11 3 years ago, whatever it was a real shock to the system. And he realised that he had to be better. He had to score quicker. He had to hit more boundaries. And he's got away and he has improved. And I think this is just the start for him.
Me too. It's nice to see him do so well as well. I think I saw something from someone on Twitter who just completely forgot that Will Jacks nearly got a century because Sam Hain was just there, just having a great time. It's really nice to see. Background Noise asks, out of England's lineup today, who do you expect to play central roles in the next World Cup cycle?
It's a good question. And it's a bit early to say, but you'd say Cass, you'd say Jacks, I think Haynes, I think Rhiannon. Those are the ones off the top of my head. Maybe Duckett. I mean, it's difficult to play in all formats, isn't it? But I thought, those are the ones off the top of my head. And there'll be some others, no doubt. But
what did you think of Crawley's captaincy today?
I thought it was quite a difficult day to captain. And I thought actually that Duckett did a lot of the captaincy. Yeah. But I thought he had a difficult decision to make with Scrimshaw. I don't know if we have questions about Scrimshaw, but he kept him on, and there aren't rights or wrongs necessarily, but I'm glad he kept him on. And I think it was vindicated. I thought it was brave, and I thought it showed confidence in George Scrimshaw. That was almost horrible what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been there.
We look bad.
It was hard to see, but I think when you could see the sort of disbelief and relief in his face when that first wicket.
Well, yes, you could, but he then he was on the boundary in front of us here at third, and he was shaking his head, and he looked like a fellow who was in shock. And it was very reminiscent of that terrific piece that Nick Friend wrote the other day of the 2001 Scott Boswell game, and Leicestershire and Somerset at Lords, and it was going that way. It really was, and he's turned it around. Look, he's not had a particularly great debut by any means, but he has taken wickets. He's had a decent day out for England, and it wasn't as horrible as it could have been at one stage. And Crawley deserves some credit for that because he kept him on. He showed some faith in him. And I'll give you an example. Simon Kerrigan never got brought back into the attack at the Oval. And I thought Alistair Cook got that wrong. I mean, it's easy to criticise and difficult to captain. But I thought Crawley showed some real leadership. But Duckett was doing a lot. Duckett really was doing a lot of the field placings. And it may be that Crawley was very happy for him to do that. I'm not positive that Crawley is the future England captain that some are suggesting. I just think that he might be. But there are quite a lot of people not here. And I suspect
Ollie Pope
that if
or Sam Curran, maybe, example. Yeah.
Both of those terrific examples who are probably ahead of
them. Philly Blue Nose asks, what are Haynes' chances of becoming a permanent member of England 50 over starting 11 with his current style of batting when it seems a more gung-ho approach appears more favoured?
I think that's a really fair question, and it's a debate rather than I can't give you an answer, can I? I think he's got a shout, but I probably am fighting against my own bias a little bit because I've been watching him since about 15 or whatever, and wish him well. But I thought that you've got to keep the context of the game in account here. I thought Owen Morgan was a little harsh on Sky. I think that was the highest strike rate of any batter who reached 30 in the match that Sam Hain scored. I didn't think it was a typical Trent Bridge wicket. You know, we think of this place as a batting paradise. And the ball did grip a little bit for seamers and spinners. Once the hardness of the ball, the balls had softened a wee bit, once the fielders were able to go out a bit, I thought run scoring wasn't as easy as it sometimes is at Trent Bridge. Now, I might be wrong. It might be that if Josh Butler had been here, he would have made it look much, much easier. But I thought Sam Hain was in a wee bit of a predicament in that you had Cast coming in at 15 overs to go. That feels a little bit high to me, just a little bit. And I thought he had to sort of combat the fact that there were quite a lot of overs to back, quite a tricky, somewhat tricky batting conditions. There were quite a few things going on, and he's on debut for this. So we got the third highest score by an England male debutant in ODI history. That's not so bad, is it? And they've won by several. So I thought he did enough to show that I think the last line of my piece is he's a man that selectors can do business with. And I do think that. But will he have to develop and improve? Yeah, sure he will.
Rob Randall asks, how bad is Liam Dawson's handicap that he doesn't feature in England squads these days?
Well, I suspect that Liam Dawson, I haven't checked and I should have done, that Liam Dawson wanted to finish the summer with Hampshire, as did James Vince, I expect, to help them finish as strongly as they could in the championship.
I mean, he's had a great week with Hampshire, it has to be said.
He's had a great season. He's had a really good season. He would be a very viable contender for championship player of the season. I think he's taken 40 wickets at 20, ballpark, 38 at 21 maybe, and he's averaging more than 40 with the bat. That's terrific. So I think he was originally told he was going to to India in the World Cup squad. I think he'd be a very, very good reserve. And I think that England know what he's capable of doing, and you're maybe not learning about him in the way that you're learning about some of these guys. So too much into him not being there, but he does seem to be a very good cricketer, absolutely at the peak of his powers. And I think it would be a wee bit of a shame if they moved on from him already, because I think probably he's at his best right now.
Well, on the topic of reserves, Sushan asks, isn't Jax a better reserve batter option than Roy?
That's very fair. I mean, he offers more all round, doesn't he? Because he can bowl.
Yeah, he bowled a little bit.
He fielded really well. He made a really difficult catch.
Running backwards one that just looked impossible.
Covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And he timed the ball. He timed the ball sweetly as hell up front. But can he do what Roy does in terms of that bludgeoning, powerful, dominant role? I don't know. Maybe he can actually. I've been really struck, I think I said already, but I've been really struck by the negativity towards Jason Roy, and I think it's a misunderstanding on Twitter. I've been really struck by England supporters being a bit sort of, I don't know, I think they've got it wrong. I think people have misunderstood the giving the central contract back. It's just a technicality. He didn't miss a single game in Surrey or England. He just wanted to go and play some cricket in the summer. Anyway, I think he's been a great servant for England, and it pains me a bit to hear the way people talk about him as if he's a spoiled brat who's thrown his toys out the pram. He's a man who's desperately disappointed, and that's kind of what you want from your players who miss out on that, particularly once they've been told they were going, which he was. So I've got a lot of sympathy for him. Having said that, taking emotion out of it, the question you ask is: Will Jackson a better bet? He's a very strong bet as well. Yeah, it's a completely reasonable shout.
I'd quite like to see him go, just as a sort of lingering element of competition, and there's always someone sort of creeping around the 11 or the 15, I suppose.
Well, one of the things I would say is that there was a case for having a really good fielder, another really good fielder in the squad, because very talented though a lot of those guys are, great hands though they have, they don't have great hips and knees and calves and what have you. There's a lot of miles on the clock of this England side. And, having a Will Jacks in there, I mean, he is a bit better fielder than Jason Roy at this stage of their careers, and maybe that should be a defining factor. I worry a bit about England's fielding in India.
Background Noise again asks, does Sam Hain run the risk of legal difficulties with his use of the trademarked Butler shoulder shimmy?
I mean, there's all sorts of things. I thought that Scrimshaw looked a bit like a mixture of Stephen Finn and Adam Eggleston. Let's go back a bit, I know. Players often look like other players. And if you're going to be an ODI player, why not have a trigger movement like Joss Butler, who's probably the best white ball player England have ever had? And as I say, Sam Hain used to look like Jonathan Trott, uncannily like Jonathan Trott. And if his game now has gone Trotty to Butler, that's not a bad development arc for a white ball player in this day and age. That's exactly what he's been asked to do, and a pretty good microcosm of where he is as a batter, I think.
And final question for today, and we're really getting down to nitty gritty journalism here, George, from Philip Brown, who asks, what pudding did you have again?
I had a chocolate and clementine tort, and it was delicious, and I don't regret it. You know how sometimes you eat these things and you think it wasn't worth it. I just looked ever more like a potato, and it wasn't delicious enough to do it. Well, it was. It was delicious enough to do it, and I'm not sorry. And Philip might be a great photographer, but he'd be much better if he focused on the pitch rather than trying to take pictures of me eating or looking old and fat and miserable.
Never, George.
But he is very good at those.
Could never be miserable watching that Sam Hain innings.
I think. Well, we had a lovely day the other day. It's just in the rain at Leeds, didn't we?
Yeah, we had a nice few cup of teas. It was a lovely, nice little jaunt out from Trent Bridge. That's all we've got for Ask George, and we will see you at Bristol on
Looking forward to it.
Tuesday. Lovely.